Alrighty, hello every folks, and good morning. Welcome to a quick little discussion on laser swords, of all things. Okay, so specifically what I wanted to talk about here today is actually when it comes to the kind of knight sword, holy sword, whatever else skills, like the various sword laser skills that are around for various different classes throughout FFT, and namely the fact that Ramza almost uniquely doesn't actually get any. We see them show up for high-ranking officials for all sorts of factions, whether it's the trained agents like Delita or Agrius, whether it's for the long-term commanders and stuff like Wheatgraph or Sid or whatnot, which in Sid's case he's been around kind of through the ringer, so he's gotten all kinds of different versions of them. Whether it's the retired ones that happen to have a more kind of brutal version of the existing abilities, like we see with Gaff. Essentially, we have all kinds of different versions of these sword skills that are specifically there for kind of high-ranking members of various factions. Now, as far as Ramza goes, though, the only time that he ever had access to those is from the kind of Wodal versions of the game here, through the Dark Knight class, and even then it was kind of basically a diet version of those same skills. So, what is the deal with him not getting them specifically? Because as a lot of folks have mentioned, a lot of them have this sort of idea that he should be able to have them. He went and kept up with everybody else, and anime logic dictates that he has to get their powers. So the thing is, it's as far as I'm concerned, it's kind of a narrative thing. It's kind of a mark of station, because every time that we see them used by somebody, it's somebody that is specifically there to represent a sort of like official capacity, almost governmental sort of unit. Somebody that essentially has been through all of the proper training, has been through all of the proper everything through the 50 Years' War and whatnot, and essentially it's left them with very refined abilities that don't necessarily translate to them being a good or bad person. It's just a highly kind of precise type of skill that they specifically get to use. And it's not like you don't have your own versions of this. In fact, most of the classes are kind of put together in a way that is similar to all of those Night Sword type of classes there. Considering that, what exactly is, let's say, the Holy Sword class? Well, I guess you could say Holy Sword, Dark Sword, whatever else. It's effectively going to be a combination of like Knight plus various types of Wizard. Whether you got like Knight plus Mystic for the Templar, or like Knight plus Black Mage for the most part for something like the Holy Knights, or Knight plus, I guess arguably the other half of Mystic, plus potentially some other stuff when it comes to the Fell Sword and stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of different variations of Wizard plus, Knight, because effectively what seems to be implied there, story-wise, at least the way that I read it, is that during that 50 Years' War, everyone realized, like, yeah, all this wizard stuff, really freaking powerful. Charge time and MP, though, that's a little bit of a limiting factor. Like, in a straight one-to-one, if they each get their shots off, Black Mage is probably beating any one of those classes. I mean, that is basically the single-player experience in this game in a nutshell. I say single player experience, it's more like the Ramza experience of just like you turn him into a Black Mage, dude, just instant nukes everything. But, so on the one page, you could argue he never needed it, because flare go boom. But for another thing, in terms of the actual like narrative implications of the whole thing, it's sort of sort of a mark of entitlement that somebody has, that they are associated with, like, let's say the church, government, whatever else, anybody else that happens to be using those particular abilities. So he is distinctly outside of that, and additionally, he does get his own variant of the same thing. They are all Knight plus various type of offensive wizard. He takes a more pacifist route. He is Knight plus Orator, essentially serving as more of an inspiration and more of a chatterbox of sorts, where he gets the ability to, boost people's speed and confidence and whatever else through his various kind of talking abilities, but he does still get access to heavier armors and heavier types of equipment, as all of the other Knight variants do, essentially turning him again into like a super squire. That was weird because it's okay, sorry for the awkward cut there. It started to put in a bunch of random ads for other videos instead of just looping the video normally. I'm not sure what that was about. Anywho, so yeah, essentially he does get his own version. It's just Knight plus Orator instead of Knight plus Wizard. So, that's just kind of neat, I mean, one of those other things that just makes it particularly thematically fitting here is the fact that, just like, let's say, somebody like Denim from Tactics Ogre there, he's somebody that doesn't really immediately turn to violence as his first answer. That's actually something that we see from a lot of the characters, that they immediately go aggressively attack all their problems. he's one of very few to immediately turn to negotiation as his very first port of call. Like, in this particular case, every time that he goes and gets confronted by somebody, immediately starts chatterboxing, immediately starts trying to talk them down, immediately starts telling them it's not necessary, he doesn't want to fight them, all of that kind of thing. Because, I mean, granted, both him and Denim are basically cut from the same cloth there, but still, the idea is that that he would prefer to talk rather than fight. And in fact, we see this reflected in a lot of cutscenes where they very rarely draw their weapon at all. Which obviously, no matter what you do, it's going to be the wrong weapon, so they obviously don't want to reuse that too much. But he very rarely actually draws on anyone. And again, this is true of a lot of Mitsuno characters, as it were. Where a lot of them will simply refuse to go draw on anyone, with the exception being somebody like, Ashley Riot from Vagrant Story, gladly walks up to somebody holding holding a crossbow to them. But for the most part, whenever somebody's using their weapon, it's kind of an indication of intent. And so the only time that we, for example, see Ramza here go and draw on anyone is going to be defensively. That rather than being an offensive tool, his weapon is a source of defense. It's a sort of source of protection and only meant to keep some standoff. Even here, where he sees that something is happening, he doesn't try to go finish Wigrath off. He still tries to talk him out of it, still tries to talk him down. He's still talking like a minute after this could have been potentially a boss fight avoided. The guy starts directly calling himself the devil, which, this is the PS1 translation, I always thought that this was a little bit hilarious. Also one of those things that, coming from a Lithuanian background, a lot of the weird translations sounded Lithuanian. But even then, sees this demonic goat demon thing show up that just said it was demonic. And he's like, I'll reach for my weapon anyway. We'll think about this. And then the thing finally notices him, turns around, and he's like, oh, dude, I'm freaking all-powerful now. And like, okay, now. Now that we've established what's going on here, now we're going to try to get some standoff distance. So again, he does it defensively. His first protocol is always to go and discuss. He always talks first, fights later. Anyways, so that's about that. That's just all I wanted to share on that particular thing. It's not like he doesn't necessarily... he doesn't get anything. Again, he does technically get an offensive version in the form of Ultima, which is weirdly placed. I was kind of wondered if he was meant to have some other kind of variant of the thing there, considering that you only get it either right before the end of the game or from the deep dungeon there. So I'm assuming maybe at some point it was meant to be something else, but it's just sort of like a neutral way to implement the same thing, I guess. So yeah, not sure what Ultima's doing there, but yeah, his whole unique ability to motivate people and do the whole talking, negotiating thing and what have you, that is basically his version of the Night Swords and what have you. It's not as sexy or flashy as a lot of the other stuff. He doesn't get cool laser swords, but he does get to tell people to run very, very fast until they eventually break time. So there's that too. He can even motivate himself hard enough that he one-shots Wigrath by attacking him 17 times in a row. So there's that. Anyway, so... hopefully this makes sense. It's actually one of those reasons that I personally don't mind that the DK is going to be gone, because yeah, narratively speaking, that's just a cool angle to me. Anyway, so y'all have yourselves a good one. Take care, and I will see you in the next one.